my theory is that because of the harsh conditions in Europe, they developed this very materialistic and predatory approach to life, and the idea that whoever has the resources is the successful one and is the best, is superior. Superiority means you have the resources, and it doesn't matter how you got them. So that's the predatory aspect of it. But there's another aspect to it, which is that I think that that they have a feeling that, or they had, in their origin, they had this feeling that being in harsh conditions and being in an environment without really resources was a sign of Allah's disdain for them, was a sign of Allah's dismissiveness about them or contempt for them. And this created a whole attitude in their development, in their approach to morality and righteousness and so on. But importantly, I think it also created in them a very negative view of humanity. A very, like the idea, like you still have people in the West talking about, do you think people are human nature? Is human nature good or evil? And you don't ask that question unless you assume already the latter. There's no reason to even ask the question.
Yeah.
Because you're basically asking the question because you want someone to give you some hope or optimism that maybe people are good. You're asking the question because you believe that they're evil.
People are evil.
And so when you ask the question, it's because you're wondering if anybody will suggest that it could possibly be that people are good. And they clearly believe that people are evil. They clearly believe that they have a very negative view of mankind.
Of human nature.
Which anyway comes from the fact that that they've been following Shaitan and the waswasa of Shaitan. It's an entire so-called civilization that was built upon the waswasa of Shaitan. And we know how Shaitan feels about humanity, that we're unworthy and that we're bad. So this is the message that they've been getting from their very origin. And it's clear that they have this attitude. And this also plays into their materialism, because you yourself you don't have value. You yourself don't have worth. In order for you to have worth, you have to possess resources. You have to possess material things. And the one who possesses the most is the best. This is your criteria for value. Because you believe that human beings innately don't have value. You see this also manifesting in what we've talked about before, and what I've talked about before, of how they perceive society would be and how people would behave in a post-apocalyptic world, which is anarchy, crime, violence, savagery, brutality. This is what they envision, how people would behave. And then they also have those movies like the Purge movies, where they really think this about people, that it's the fantasy of people to be savage without consequence. That's a fantasy that all human beings deeply hold. And that's why they think that in a post-apocalyptic world, that's how everyone would be. It would be absolute wilderness and savagery. This is the view they take of humanity. That's an incredibly negative view. And their whole so-called civilization is built on that. And you can look at the fact that, for example, while America talks about being the most free country in the world, there are more laws in America than in any other country. There's more laws on the books than in any other country. Meanwhile, they talk about Islam being so rigid and so strict and having so many rules. But by comparison, Sharia is nowhere near the amount of rules that you have in your society. It's nowhere near all the regulations that you have in your society. And you believe that you must have these. Otherwise their nature will come out and they'll be wild and savage. because you really believe that people are all wild and savage, and that the only way to prevent them from being wild and savage is by strict control by the state. And this is like this dominates their whole approach to everything. Their approach to the world, their approach to international relations, and their approach to even each other on a personal level, on an interpersonal level. I want Westerners to understand this about the so-called civilization that brought you up. Because you have a right to believe actually in human decency. You have a right to believe that you're good, and not to live in, and to understand and recognize that you live in a society that doesn't think you are. You live in a society and you come from a civilization that does not think you are good, and that is trying to program into your mind that you're not. And then the same way that they did and are still doing with the so-called war on terror. When you have made up this idea in your head that isn't true, because of course the truth is that the fitrah is good, but you've made up a thing in your head that it's true, it's not true, now I have to make it true. I've built everything on this view, and I have too much writing on this being preserved. So now I have to make it true. And so now you not only live in a civilization that thinks that you're bad, but you live in a civilization that wants you to be bad, so that they can justify their strict and rigid control over you. So that they can justify their oppression and repression of you. And that's why the freedom that you have is in freedom to do wrong. You have the freedom to break taboos. Long held taboos by the human race. That's the freedom that you have. Because we need to affirm that you're evil. That's the freedom that we give you, so that we can ensure that you actually become the way we think you are, the way the civilization thinks you are, because you're not actually. Your nature isn't. Your fitrah is pure. Your fitrah is good, and human beings want to be good. But your civilization thinks that you're evil, thinks that you don't deserve Allah's favor, and then wants to ensure that becomes true about you. Exactly like what Iblis, that's the entire thinking of Iblis towards Bani Adam. I think that they are worthless, and now I must make them worthless, so that I can prove to Allah that I was right. And this is the whole civilization is built around this exact same way of thinking about human beings.
There's a way out of this.
There's a way out. And this is what I want. I want, people maybe, I mean, even the fact that you get defensive, you get triggered when I'm critical of the West and Western so-called civilization. Reflect upon your defensiveness and your triggeredness, which isn't the word, but reflect upon your defensiveness. If you were a civilization, an actual civilization that was interested in civilizing, well, one of the core aspects of civilized people is to be refined and to continuously seek improvement and to be better and to improve their character. Your response to criticism isn't to be defensive. Your response to criticism is to reflect, rather than the immediate reflex response is to try to crush anyone who criticizes. Because again, this is your origin, which is that supremacy and superiority comes in the ability to have power over people, and to push other people down and to take from those people. To exploit, to pillage, to plunder, and to oppress. Because you think that makes you superior, and that gives you value. In other words, an uncivilized, savage, brutal, primitive way of behaving. So that the negative, or the belief in a negative human nature gets proven true. You've been trained to only have primitive reflexes. You've been trained to not civilize because your civilization was built on the assumption and the belief that you're no good, that human beings are no good. So the thing that they hate more than anything else is people who are good.
Right. Yeah, sure.
They hate that more than anything else, just like Iblis.
Mm-hmm.
They hate that more than anything else. And so then you will say about those people, this is also where the whole thing comes from, where every accusation is a confession on their part. Every time they accuse, it's a confession. Just like when you say Islam is so rigid.
Right.
Islam is against freedom. Meanwhile, you are the most rigidly regulated society on the face of the earth. You have more laws on your books that you have to follow than anywhere else on the planet in the land of the free. But you point your finger at Islam and say that they don't believe in freedom and that they're too rigid and too strict. I mean, also, there's also the fact that we're all supposed to take it as a given that the best and the most important thing in the world is freedom. Not fairness, not justice, not goodness. There's no reason why we should have the argument or try to prove that Islam is or is not for or against freedom. Who said that freedom is the ultimate virtue? Who said that freedom is the ultimate pinnacle principle of life? I mean, if you really analyze that, that comes down to the belief that, subhanAllah, that really comes down to exactly that view of humanity, that they want to be able to do anything they want. And therefore, freedom is the ultimate thing that everyone should want.
Right.
Because it comes down to the idea that all human beings really just want to do whatever they want to do. So you have to program into our heads that freedom is the ultimate thing that we all want.
Right.
Which taken to its natural progression is the freedom to do anything and everything. And you believe that about people, that's ultimately what they all want. And when you have that belief, it's exactly the same as believing that people are inherently bad and selfish. When you believe that the only thing that people really want is freedom, then you will naturally, as a government, want strict control. If you don't believe in human goodness, then you will believe that people must be highly regulated. If you don't, if you believe that people are not basically good, then you will believe that they need extreme rigidity and strictness to keep them from becoming, from running amok. If you don't believe that people can regulate their own behavior, And there's so many layers to this, because this also as I was mentioning, this also explains why they were so ready to accept the idea of Darwin and evolution and the belief that, oh yeah, it makes perfect sense that we're actually animals, that actually we're animals. That's the origin story that we will choose to believe, even though you don't have evidence of it. You can, let's just agree, for the sake of argument, that we don't really know our side, the Islamic version. We don't know that it was Adam, alayhi salam, and Hawa, and Eve, Adam and Eve. But also you don't know. The reality is, if we're talking just factually, our origin is a mystery. The origin of the human race is a mystery. The origin of the universe is a mystery. No one can actually explain it. Everyone can have a theory, but your theory is the same as what you call my fable. Your theory is just a fancy word for a fairy tale, which is what you call my belief. Well, your belief also to me is a fairy tale. But which origin story did you choose to believe? If it's coming down to, let's just pretend that we don't have a reasonable, rational, intellectual reason for believing in the story that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about our origin. And it's just, you have on the table all of the various origin stories of mankind. The one you choose to believe is that human beings are animals. That's what you choose to believe.
Yeah.
Well, that's because that appeals to you. That appeals to you. And what you think about human beings.
Confirmation bias.
The one that we choose to believe is that we have a noble beginning. And that we were always complete as what we are. Men and women. Completely distinct creations. Distinct upon the earth. Distinct among all of creation. Created by an honorable and noble process. A distinguished, blessed process was the origin of the human race. Well, if you believe that, or if you believe that we're monkeys, this tells you all you need to know about what they think and what we think about human nature. We believe that human nature is honorable and noble. You believe that it's primal, primitive, animalistic. And our society and your society reflect that belief in the human origin. Both of those, your belief and our belief, is manifested in our societies.